Nobody was ever meant to see this, a trainer dragged below the surface, the audience screams echoing across the stadium. And then, nothing. Silence. Freeze the image on the orca's unblinking eye. Do you see it? That stare that never shifts. That is where the story begins. Not above the water, not in the light and the laughter, but beneath the surface where the truth waits. For years, the park sold the dream of control, a spectacle of man mastering nature, a show of smiles and precision. But here in this moment, the mask is gone. This is not a mistake caught on tape. This is a rupture, a glimpse through the cracks into something raw, something that was never supposed to be filmed. Listen carefully to that silence. Do you feel how heavy it is? The weight of an entire crowd unable to process what they just saw. The water thrashes for a heartbeat, then goes still. And in the stillness, you sense it, that nothing in this pool has ever really been under control. The reports will call it an accident. They will write it in ink so cold and sterile it feels almost safe. But what the lens caught, what you are seeing now, was not random chaos. It was deliberate. A choice. As if the orca had been waiting for the moment to drag the illusion into the deep. That eye never blinks. It does not panic. It does not scream. It watches. It calculates. And in that frozen stare, you realize this was not just an animal lunging without thought. It was something older, something more patient, and far more dangerous than anyone in those bleachers understood. This is where the descent begins, with a tape that should have been destroyed, a silence that still rattles through the years, and an eye that tells you the truth, that the surface is just a mask, and what lies beneath will always rise to meet you. Bright colors flood the eye, smiling families clap in rhythm, children laughing at rehearsed tricks, music blasting over the speakers like a carnival dream. This is the mask of fun. The stage painted to hide the prison underneath. Look closely at the costumes, the sequins that glitter under artificial lights, every detail designed to blind you to the truth, the trainers smiling wider than they feel, the audience never questioning, because who would suspect that death could hide behind applause? But what happens when entertainment becomes a cage? What happens when the cage begins to crack? This is not joy. This is ritual. Day after day, the same loop. The beast turning in circles while the crowd forgets it is trapped. What you see is control, but what the orca sees is confinement, and confinement sharpens things that were never meant to be dulled. The laughter of the children echoes. It is innocent. It does not know it is standing inches away from a predator, forced into submission. A predator that remembers every splash, every command, every humiliation of being reduced to a trick for food. Imagine a god dressed as a clown. That is the show you are watching. The lights dim after the performance. The families leave. But the cage remains. The water still. The eye beneath the surface opening once more, not for play, not for applause, but for something older, something waiting in silence. The painted stage is a lie, a distraction, a veil thrown over a truth too dangerous for the world outside to accept. The crowd came for entertainment, but what they witnessed without knowing was captivity, and captivity always carries a cost. The music fades, the laughter dies, and once again the water watches, still as glass, masking the truth beneath the surface. February 24th, 2010. A veteran trainer walks into the pool as he has done 1,000 times before. The crowd cheers, the cameras roll. On the surface, everything looks normal, but beneath the water, something else is waiting. The official report will call it an accident, a slip, a mistake, but the tape does not lie. The tape shows hesitation, a pause, the orca circling, the water breaking with a violence too precise to be chance. Grainy footage flickers, shaky, silent. Just before the strike, you see the trainer smile. You see the moment before everything changes. And then the water explodes. Bodies collide. The audience rises in confusion that curdles into horror. What was sold as a show has become a lesson in power. This was not random. This was not chaos. The movements are deliberate, calculated. The orca seizes and drags with the certainty of something that has been waiting, something that has chosen its moment with patience and precision. 7 minutes of struggle, 7 minutes of silence broken by screams and splashes. Then nothing. The water smooth again as if it had swallowed its secret hole. The crowd frozen, the cameras still running, capturing something they were never meant to capture. The park rushed to clean the narrative, to file the papers, to call it an accident, but the images remain, burned into every eye that saw them. This was not nature slipping. This was nature answering. First, blood stains more than the water. It stains the illusion, the idea that control was ever real. One strike and the mask fractures. The audience cannot unsee it. The trainers cannot unknow it. And the eye beneath the surface blinks for no one. For decades, the reports have whispered the same story. Accidents, they called them. Errors in judgment. Moments of human weakness, rewritten as explanations that hide more than they reveal. One trainer slips. Another misjudges a command. Always human fault. Never the beast. But the files tell a different truth. Each case almost identical. The sudden pull, the thrashing water, the silence that follows. Names change. Dates change. But the pattern does not. A rhythm of violence stretching across years. Those who worked close to the orcas knew more than they said. They spoke carefully, or not at all, their eyes shifting when questions pressed too hard, because silence was safer than honesty, because honesty would shatter the empire built on smiles and tickets sold. Yet silence has weight. It presses down like deep water. It drowns truth, it suffocates memory, and beneath it all, something still stirs. Not asleep, not forgotten, just waiting. Look at the pool when it is calm, the perfect reflection on the surface. But watch longer. A ripple disturbs the glass, small at first, barely there, yet unmistakable. Something beneath breaks the stillness. That ripple is the truth the reports buried, the truth the trainers never spoke. The truth that no one in the stands wanted to see, that this was never about accidents, it was about patience. It was about the waiting game played by something that never forgets. Silence may rewrite words on paper, but the water remembers everything. Press statements echo with practiced calm. Officials in suits facing microphones, they speak of errors and mishaps, of rare and unpredictable tragedy, words chosen not to reveal but to contain. Every phrase polished to smooth the edges of horror, but lies are not only spoken, they are lived. The trainers return to work the next day, the shows go on, the music plays, and the crowd believes because believing is easier than knowing. The lie becomes the surface they all agree to stand on. Fragile, thin, ready to break at the slightest tremor. Inside the pool, the orca moves in slow circles, each turn a reminder that the stage is not theater, but prison. The lie tells the world this creature is entertainment, that it bends to the will of man, that its obedience is proof of mastery. But the water tells another story, a story of hunger, of memory, of something vast forced into silence. Every press release closes with the same reassurances. Safety is our highest priority. The risks are minimal. The shows will continue, but every reassurance is a stone laid over a grave, covering not just bodies but truth itself, until the silence feels thick enough to smother, and still the eye watches, closing when the lights go up, opening when the stands are empty. Not sleeping, never sleeping, only waiting. The pool reflects the world above like a mirror of glass. But what lies beneath that mirror is not illusion, it is truth, and truth is heavier than any press statement can carry, heavier than any lie can contain. The pool of lies is wide and deep, and its silence kills as surely as the water itself. Away from the cameras, the truth leaks in fragments, not in headlines, not in reports, but in whispers. Ex-trainers speaking only when they know no microphone is near. Their voices low, their words half swallowed by fear. It wasn't random, one of them says. It was personal. You can hear the tremor in the sentence, the hesitation before the word choice. Not mistake, not error. Personal, as if the beast itself had chosen the moment, as if it had remembered. Another trainer speaks with eyes down, hands shaking, as though even memory is dangerous to hold. They describe the feeling of being studied, of being weighed and measured by something behind that black, unblinking eye. Not an animal's glance, not instinct, but calculation, and every whisper breaks off before it goes too far. Sentences left unfinished, breaths drawn sharply and held too long, as though the words themselves carry risk, as though speaking them aloud would draw the eye back to them even after years away. What you hear in these testimonies is not just fear, it is guilt, because they knew. They felt it long before the blood hit the water. They saw the way the Orca lingered in silence, the way it responded not just to commands, but to weakness. They knew, and still they performed. Still they smiled for the crowd. Still they told the story of safety. Now in the shadows they admit pieces of the truth, that the Orca was not forgetting, that it was learning. Every show, every repetition, every mistake. It was not training the whale, it was training the predator. And predators do not forget. They wait, they watch, and in the dark they sharpen. Captivity does not tame a predator, it distills it. It strips away the distractions of the hunt, the endless roaming of the open sea, and leaves only stillness, focus, a mind pressed against the walls of its cage until it learns every inch of them. The trainers believed the pool weakened the Orca, that confinement reduced its power. But what if the opposite is true? What if the cage became the forge? What if every turn in that shallow circle was not surrender, but sharpening? A predator learns through repetition. It memorizes the patterns of its captors, the tone of their voice, the weakness in their movements, the rhythm of the show. Each rehearsal another page in a book it never forgets. Each mistake written in memory, until one day the book closes, and you must ask, what kind of intelligence grows in silence? What kind of patience develops in an animal forced to wait for years, to endure humiliation for scraps of food, to perform tricks for strangers, while its freedom rusts away beneath painted walls? That patience is not passive. It is the edge of a blade being honed, invisible until the moment it cuts. And when it cuts with precision. The predator's mind is not wild, it is not chaos, it is not frenzy. It is strategy. It is awareness sharpened by confinement, transformed by captivity into something neither fully beast nor fully human, but something beyond both. And in the stillness of the water, you can feel it, the pressure, the weight of a mind that does not sleep, that does not forget, that has been studying you longer than you have been studying it. The predator's mind is the shadow no cage can hold. Picture the park long after midnight. Empty seats, faded banners shifting in the wind. The silence of a place built for noise now abandoned to its echoes. Only the pool remains alive. Black water glimmering under the dull hum of security lights. A worker makes his rounds, keys jingling at his side. He pauses near the tank, and that is when he sees it. The surface breaks without sound. No splash, no warning. Just the silent rise of a shadow too vast to measure, an eye lifting above the waterline, fixed on him. He swears the gaze holds him in place, pinned like prey in the dark. The water smooth again, but the eye unmoving, watching, studying, breathing without a sound. For a moment the worker feels as though he is the one on display, and the pool is not a cage, but a window into something deeper, older, endless. Later, he will tell the story only once, his voice shaking, insisting that the Orca followed him with its gaze long after he stepped away. even when the distance grew, even when walls came between them. The sensation of being seen never left, a presence clinging like the weight of the ocean pressing down on his chest. Not animal, not human. Something else entirely. Something that wears silence like armor. Something that learns how to wait, how to choose the moment to surface. The beast is not asleep. The beast is not broken. The beast is awake. And when it wakes fully, there will be no stage, no trainer, no crowd, only the water, and what lives beneath it. Rome built its arenas on blood. Babylon raised walls to cage the chaos of gods and men. Every empire has tried to tame what it feared most, and every empire believed its cages would hold forever. But cages are not proof of power. They are proof of fear. The bars reveal not the weakness of the beast, but the weakness of the one who builds them. The empire that must chain its enemies has already admitted it cannot defeat them. The pool was no different. Bright paint and concrete walls became its Colosseum, a stage built to prove mastery, to show man's dominion over the sea itself. Every performance was a declaration of empire, that even the Leviathan could be broken into entertainment. But empires are blind to the lessons of history. The beast inside the cage is never defeated. It is only waiting, sharpening, studying the cracks in the wall, the flaws in its captors, the pride that blinds them. Rome fell to the same violence it once unleashed on others. Babylon drowned in the river it tried to command. And here, in a shallow pool built for spectacle, the same pattern repeats, the same arrogance writes the same ending. Because the predator remembers what the empire forgets, that cages rust, that walls crumble, that control is never eternal. And when the collapse begins, it is always sudden, always violent, always final. The predator's empire is not measured in stone or in banners. It is measured in patience. It is written in silence, and it waits in the water for the moment the illusion falls. Long before the concrete pools and painted stages, mankind told stories of the sea, whispers of leviathans that could swallow ships whole, of gods who ruled the deep with eyes black as night, of monsters that rose from beneath without warning, dragging men into silence. Were these myths only imagination, or were they memory? Fragments of truth passed down in shadowed tales, warnings carved into the bones of culture, so we would not forget what waits below. The ocean has always been our oldest fear, endless, unmapped, a darkness no torch can pierce, and from that darkness came shapes we could not control, creatures vast enough to remind us of our fragility, minds alien enough to remind us we were never truly in command. Yet over time we painted over those fears. We told ourselves the myths were stories, nothing more. We built ships that cut across the waves. We built cages to drag the sea into captivity, and in doing so we mocked the warnings of the past. We convinced ourselves that what terrified our ancestors could be tamed with tricks and lights, but the echo remains. Listen closely and you hear it, in the crash of waves against stone, in the silence of deep water, in the black, unblinking eye that surfaces just long enough to remind us of what we have forgotten. Perhaps the myths were not inventions, perhaps they were encounters, not gods, not monsters, but predators, ancient and patient, carrying memory older than empires. And when we force those memories into cages, when we reduce the Leviathan to theater, we are not proving mastery, we are daring the echo to return. The stories of the deep were never warnings of fantasy. They were reminders of truth, and truth waits in the water still. There is always one night that cannot be erased, the night when silence shatters and the mask of safety burns away. The worst night of all. The show began like any other, the crowd clapping, the trainers smiling, the music rising above the pool. And then, without warning, the surface broke, a blur of power. A scream cut short, the water thrashing as if the ocean itself had been poured into that small arena. The audience froze. Some screamed, some turned away, some pressed closer, as though disbelief chained them to their seats. For 7 endless minutes the struggle continued, 7 minutes that felt like eternity stretched thin. And then, stillness, the water went red, Then it stilled. The silence that followed was not relief. It was a silence so heavy it pressed into the bones, a silence that said nothing would ever be the same again. What happened next, you will not see. The footage ends abruptly. The cameras cut to black, as though erasing the moment could undo it, but those who were there never forgot. They tell of chaos, of trainers screaming orders that no one could follow, of children crying while their parents dragged them toward the exits, of a pool that looked less like an attraction and more like a grave. And then, nothing. The official statement spoke of accidents, of tragedy, of errors that could never be repeated. But behind those words was the truth no one wanted recorded, that something inside the cage had broken through. Not just the body of a trainer, but the illusion itself. The breaking point had come, and once broken, nothing could hold it back again. You have come too far to turn back now. The stories you have heard are not entertainment. They are fragments of something buried, something most men never face. And once you face it, you cannot unsee it. This is the moment of choice. Do you step back into the comfort of illusion, or do you continue down into the dark where the truth waits? Because truth is not given freely. It demands a price. It takes from you the safety of not knowing. So pause now. Let the screen stay black for 3 seconds. Let the silence press down on you like the weight of deep water. And in that silence decide, if you are ready, if you truly want to see beneath the surface, then you must cross the threshold. Not with sight, but with voice. Type this phrase twice in the comments. I have seen beneath the surface. Do not take it lightly. Do not treat it as a game, because once spoken, it becomes a mark, a sign that you chose to look where others turn away. And know this, those who speak it join a different current, a current that does not return to the shore, because the moment you admit you have seen, you are no longer the same. So choose. Remain a spectator in the safety of illusion, or step into the deep and bear its weight. But remember, once spoken, there is no turning back. What was it all along? Animal, monster, or something far more dangerous? A mirror, black water, is not empty. It reflects. It shows us what we tried to bury, the hunger for control, the arrogance of empire, the cruelty disguised as spectacle. Every time the surface broke, it was not just the beast rising, it was the truth staring back. The trainers thought they commanded it, but who was training whom? Every gesture repeated, every weakness studied, every moment of pride stored away like fuel for the inevitable. Control was never real. It was theater, and the Orca played its part until the mask cracked. Look closer, and you will see the same pattern everywhere. Leaders smiling while they tighten chains, institutions promising safety while they drain freedom, empires feeding on belief until collapse becomes inevitable. The pool is only a smaller stage for a larger truth. The beast did not simply resist captivity. It revealed captivity for what it really is. A mirror of the captor. The black water reflected not an animal broken, but a civilization pretending it was master of things it never understood. And now I turn the mirror toward you. Look into the water, not with your eyes, with your mind. What stares back is not the beast. It is the reflection of every cage you accept without question, every illusion you cling to, every silence you allow to stand. So look into the water and answer this: whose reflection do you see? Time always unmasks the empire. The paint cracks, the music stops, the crowds vanish, and what remains is silence echoing through ruins. The marine park was no exception. Empty stands, concrete chipped and stained, pools drained to shallow puddles where only rust and algae remain. The laughter of families that once filled the air lingers only as a ghost, a recording looped in memory long after the lights went out. But the collapse was not just physical, it was psychological. The trainers no longer spoke with pride. They spoke in hushed tones, haunted, as though the water itself had marked them. as though the reflection of that black eye followed them even outside the walls. Every empire leaves ruins. Rome left its stones, Babylon its dust. And here, this place left behind its cracked pools and the silence of something that had once stared back at mankind and refused to break. The illusion was never built for the beast. It was built for us, to convince us we had mastered what we feared, to lull us into believing control was real. But when the illusion collapsed, it revealed the truth with brutal clarity. We were never in control, not of the beast, not of the sea, not even of ourselves. The ruins stand as proof that every cage fails, proof that silence does not erase memory, proof that beneath every painted mask lies the thing we were trying so desperately to ignore, and that truth waits still, not buried, not forgotten, only watching from the deep. A pool drained to concrete, a stage abandoned to dust, yet still the silence carries weight. Still the echo remains, because water remembers, every thrash, every scream, every moment when the illusion cracked and truth came flooding in. It does not sleep, it waits. And when you close your eyes, you can almost hear it. Not the roar of the crowd, not the cheerful music that once masked the cage, but something lower, something beneath, a rumble felt more than heard, like the deep pulse of the sea pressing against your chest. Then a ripple, small at first, expanding outward, dark water disturbed by something unseen below the surface. The reflection shivers, and suddenly you realize it is not just water you are looking at. It is a mirror of power, of fear, of control unraveling. The sound shifts now, a heartbeat, steady, insistent, then slower, slower still, as if time itself is fading into silence, until nothing remains but the echo of what you have heard. This is where the story ends. Not with applause, not with answers, but with a ripple across black water and the silence that follows. Beneath the surface, nothing sleeps forever. And now, you know.